Let's see if we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 6.
I don't
Okay,
know if I
so
count for the quorum.
you
You
do.
can.
You do. We have 6 of 7, so everybody's voting. So we are conducting this meeting in accordance with the improvement to the open meeting law that allows for Zoom conferences, but all votes need to be taken as roll call votes. And let's see, everyone's name is on Zoom, so we have 6 people. And that's attendance, and we are recording this, Lily. So we'll set in that score. Let me share my screen and bring up the agenda. Okay, so our agenda is a review of the minutes of the previous meeting. Has everybody looked at them?
Yep, Lily sent them.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
So move.
I move.
Okay, John moved to second. Robert, second. All in favor? We'll do it by roll call. On my screen, I'm first. Approve. Lily?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carol?
Yeah.
Okay. The roll call order is entirely determined by Zoom. So don't feel upset about the way it comes out. Is there a change in the grant proposals, Suzanne and Carol?
Yeah. So the BRIC grant, which was the MEMA grant, fell through. That was the one where we tried to work with DPW to get a generator for the COA.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's too bad. It's not surprising because that all, we all tried to scramble together to get that in. And so I think that whole development just really underlies the argument that we have to plan, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this. We need to plan for low-lying roads, which is our focus right now, at least a year out in advance, and get the projects ready and then submit for grant funding. The BRIC grant, I've been in touch with the coordinator. He had let me know. I don't know if you'll recall, but when we first brought up this BRIC grant and we're approaching the DPW, we were really asking for them to work with us to choose a low-lying road and have that funded. And because of all this scrambling and last minute stuff, that wasn't really going to work out. And so they chose the generator instead. But that it just didn't work out. I think the scope that the grants focus doesn't really fund generators or something like that. So it was just very last minute. So, moving ahead, this BRIC grant would support something like that for mitigation.
Something like what? Low-lying roads?
Yeah, it looks like they would. But that being said, I mentioned in the last meeting that we've approached Maria and let her know that we want to have a long-term plan and we want to work with the town to prioritize and have this super organized so we're not approaching this at the last minute and trying to scramble everything together, because that doesn't work. So she agreed, and she was going to talk to the DPW, and that is not, we haven't heard back. It's been about a month. In fact, with this grant not going through, we didn't really hear from them that it didn't go through. I had to inquire about something, and then they just informed us after the fact that it never happened. So there's not a lot of good communication, and I feel that we're up against some sort of brick wall here in getting people to see this as a priority. I don't know if it's a town priority with the low-lying roads. So I'm thinking that we could use some support, maybe members of this committee who have certain inroads to certain people who might be interested in this. Maybe putting more pressure on Maria or the DPW to really, make it a climate related emergency type of thing moving ahead. I did reach out to Helen Miranda Wilson just to get someone from the select board, just to get their feel for one thing I wanted to know is, does the town feel that they're getting as much grant funding as they would like? Because from what I've seen, there's just seems to be a lot of, miscommunication or, things just not cohesive as far as the town's concerned. So I'd like to focus on that moving ahead. Firstly, in order to get these low-lying road projects underway and for any other projects that might come along. So I haven't heard back from Helen about that. I don't know that I will. Maybe I'll reach out to someone else on the select board. But I would just like to know how the town feels about, are they satisfied with the grant funding for projects that they want to do?
So let me ask you this. There is supposed to be a municipal vulnerability plan updated annually, which of
Yeah.
course we haven't done since we first wrote it. Robert, remind me, who was it that we wrote it for? Would you know?
The original one,
Yeah.
the original vulnerability plan.
Yeah. Who was it written for?
It was originally written for a part of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Well,
the
maybe
state
we,
government?
The whole,
I thought it was
Well-
required by the state. If we wanted to get state grant money.
so why don't we take the approach that we need to update the municipal vulnerability plan, and as part of that, write down the need for these low-lying roads. And maybe the question for the administration is, who's responsible for updating our annual update of the municipal vulnerability plan, because we'd like to work with them, and maybe as part of that we can develop all the information we need for the low-lying roads, and while we're at it, for the generator at the COA and the generator at the library, why not? We can always cut back.
Do you
But
think?
put that, yeah,
Oh, sorry.
But
Do
go
you
on.
think that would be a way to bring the town into this more?
That's what I'm suggesting, that it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a town plan that's
Yeah.
supposed to be updated annually. We know they're not thinking about it because, like everybody else, they respond to crises. So this is something we're supposed to be doing on an annual basis, so let's do it. And,
Okay.
if it's not done, let's make that our crisis.
Okay.
Yeah, John.
This may seem off topic, but it's not. I'm also on the wastewater committee. And the wastewater committee is under the gun because if we don't come up with a mitigation for nitrates in our waterways, we're going to have trouble with the state. We're under a court order, basically. The state requires us to come up with a plan which will dramatically reduce nitrates in the wastewater. One of the strategies, and there are many strategies, but one of the strategies that the wastewater committee is looking very seriously at is building basically, it's kind of modified bulkheads that roughly you're putting sawdust in bulkheads so that wastewater coming into our harbors will filter through these sawdust barriers and remove nitrates. One of the things that we talked about in the wastewater committee is the need to do that is very acute in the very areas which we also have problems with low-lying roadways, particularly commercial street as it moves down towards the harbor. We have a lot of wastewater that's getting into Duck Creek along there, and also along Kendrick going into the harbor. And so the wastewater committee was talking about, we might be in a better position to get grants if we can merge these two interests. That is, in rebuilding or in dealing with low-lying roads, in the process of protecting low-lying roads, also rebuild the bulkheads to filter out nitrates into the harbor. And that way, in a sense, we'll be appealing to the two issues that the state's very concerned about. The state is really on our neck about wastewater, but they're also concerned about low-lying roads. And if we're going to work on low-lying roads, we can put the bulkheads in at the same time, and that'll reduce nitrates, and it might allow us to marriage grants together and get more money.
It's,
John, do you have approval from the state to use that sawdust method?
This particular method has been okayed for the state. It's not the same as the sawdust methods for septic systems, although the state has now reached a point where it's giving conditionary permits for what are called the advanced IA systems, which involve, most of whom involve some form of sawdust. But this is actually a barrier system where you create a barrier so that water seeping into the harbor has to go through the sawdust barrier. And the obvious place to begin that is along Commercial Avenue and also Kendrick, which also are two major low-lying road areas issues.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
it's a good idea
Could,
that, because if we don't combine them, then one part might be granted, and then it will just screw up the other part of this action. So yes, it's a good idea to do it as a combined appeal. I don't think it'll help improve getting a grant because the state is so stovepiped that every agency is only looking out for its own mission. But nonetheless, it's a valid point that we have to consider the town's needs as a whole, and we shouldn't go out and get a grant to do one thing for the culverts, which will preclude or prevent or interfere with getting a grant to do the other thing for the culverts. So we should come up with a unified plan.
And I would think that means engaging the DPW in more depth on this and
Mhm.
let them know that there's even more than one committee that is concerned with this.
Yes.
Because I would imagine we really need their input. They would know if that was
Mhm.
one grant project or has to be
Right.
divided into.
Well, whether it's one grant, if that one grant project or two is a source of funding, but it needs to be a combined solution,
Yeah.
right? Whatever gets funded has to address all the issues. So
John-
we need to describe the problem and both aspects of the solution in one coherent place.
John,
Right?
does your committee have a path, or are you,
I'm having trouble hearing you, Lily, and I really would like to answer.
okay. Does your committee have a plan or a strategy of where to go and how to do this?
Yes, we're working on it because we have to come up with a comprehensive wastewater plan for the state, or else this court order, which is hanging over our heads, will come in and tell us. I mean, we may have to do it anyway, but the state is likely, and we're getting off topic, but the state's likely to tell us we have to sewer the whole town if we can't come up with a comprehensive wastewater plan that'll address how to reduce nitrates into our system. And our committee is working on a sort of multiple strategies. One is to more IAs, advanced enhanced systems, but the other is these barriers along areas which are particularly susceptible for nitrates going in. It's the barrier part which I thought would neatly marry with our lower lying road issues. And I basically agree with Dick. It's been a problem forever that states are stovepiped, but I think they're trying more and more, especially with the issue of climate change, to try to bring these things together. So we may be in a good position to bring these things together.
So this,
I mean,
the-
Well, my question
Yeah,
is why,
Is-
what
is-
happened to the,
well, Lily, let's look, Lily, what do you want to say, Lily?
Yeah, I just want to follow up. I mean, I meant, does your committee have a strategy of where to get grants or who to talk to go forth and try to get some money so that these things can be done?
So, Robert, did you want to say something?
John, does your committee have,
yes,
can you hear me, John?
I'm having an awful lot of trouble, Lily, and I really would answer you because I think you're raising an important question.
Yeah, well, I mean, does your committee have a strategy about how to get grants or how to get money to do this?
We haven't got that far yet. We're just drawing up the plan to get the first approval of the state, so the state doesn't hit us with this court action.
Right. Dick, and then my next question is, Dick, it makes sense to me to go back to the Cape Cod Commission and ask the commission, like Heather McElroy or someone, to see if they know of where the state grants are to get this accomplished, and where there might be some funding to do this.
Okay,
Does that make
yeah,
sense?
because I would like a question answered, which is
Bob, yeah,
what happened with getting the roads, the low-lying roads? What's the obstacle to that? Where did it go wrong?
Okay, so there's been a couple of attempts. So first there was the MVP grant, and that was with Cape Cod Commission. And that was rejected this time around for 2020. But that was a multi-town project, but it wasn't going to cover all the low-lying roads. It was going to be one, I believe Carol, chime in if I don't.
I think it was 2 per town would be
Yes.
selected for an engineering study. Is that
For a study, and
correct?
then, right. And then part 2 of that would be one of those 2 grants from each town would then be project ready and get funding for the project. So that, it was a good effort. It came close, but it didn't work out this time. That's not to say that it can't be resubmitted in spring. And I think that's what the Cape Cod Commission is doing. But that's just only one project yet to be determined, one road out of the many that we have. And then in terms of low-lying roads in general, so it didn't work out with this brick thing, But
What does BRIC stand for?
it's building resilience infrastructure, building resiliency infrastructure and communities. And it's a FEMA MEMA grant.
Okay.
So, next year at this time, we probably, I think with good preparation, could get that through. But we'd have to work with DPW, I believe, to find out all the details of what, where, who is going to do I think they use their engineer to do the assessment. So there's just a lot that goes into it, and it does take time. So I just want to
Is the
get
DPW, is the DPW willing to do that, or is it an obstacle?
I don't know. In the short term, it was a real obstacle. So where we're at now is that we've asked Maria Broadbent to try to set up another meeting with DPW to really have a big view talk about low-lying roads and plan well into the future on it. So
And in particular,
I
you
think
need
that
to
we need to
start
use
writing
the
the,
select board.
what's that? I heard two people talking.
okay. I think you need to
Sorry,
begin to
I think
write
we need
up
to
the
use the
project
select board
now.
to put pressure on DPW.
That's how I see it. I think Maria is really open to, pushing this along, but I don't know how authoritatively she's going to do it. I mean, one great thing about Maria Broadbent is that her background from Maryland, from Baltimore, was working on low-lying roads. Like, she has that experience and knows something about it. So I just see her as a good potential partner in all this. But she brought in the DPW. They know the roads. It's what they work on. So in one way or another, they're going to have to be involved. And I think for John, for your project that you want to do with the wastewater, have you had to confer with them at all?
No, we haven't talked to DPW yet.
Okay.
We're basically trying to draw up the plan to give to the state, to get the state to back off. That's basically what we're trying to do. And we have to have a plan that explicitly has strategies for dealing with specific problems around nitrates in the estuary.
So some portion of that plan, John, would state something about what we would be doing with culverts, right?
Well, mostly what it deals with is not so much culverts as bulkheads.
Bulkheads. Where are the bulkheads now?
Well, basically, if you drive down Commercial Avenue from Route 6 to the harbor, a lot of the area between Duck Creek and Commercial Street is held up by bulkheads, most of whom are in fairly bad shape. The areas that have some of the worst bulkheads area are also areas that in last year in that big storm flooded. So that's the concern. The other issue is that we're concerned about is nitrates coming into the harbor from behind Kendrick. And that's also an area where we could build, that's also low-lying area, and the road floods fairly in storm surges. So
what do you propose to do about bulkheads?
we're going to basically, what we'll do is rebuild deteriorating bulkheads, and behind the deteriorating bulkheads, we're going to sink into the ground these basically sawdust barriers.
And rebuilding the bulkheads, does that help the vulnerability in any way?
Yes, because it'll protect the roads from flooding.
Are these bulkheads are designed to keep the road from flooding? If the bulkheads were there, the road wouldn't have flooded? Is that what you're saying?
If you have well-built bulkheads, that's a protection from flooding.
Okay, the water just doesn't go around the bulkhead somewhere.
No, because you have a continuous bulkhead.
And even if they were completely in repair, does the town have a continuous bulkhead along all of Commercial Street?
Right now, it has partial bulkheads. Like it has a relatively new bulkhead built around Max's. But if you move further north, the bulkheads are in very bad repair. So
And I assume that if those are in bad repair, Max bulkhead does no good at all, right?
well, it protects Max.
How? Because doesn't the water just flow around it and then back?
Well, it's can, but
No?
basically Max is protected the way they have their bulkhead. The lumberyard, on the other
It
hand,
seems to me the strategy should be to force the DPW to act. And in their acting in respect to one of these, it becomes obvious to include the other one. But the issue there is to get the DPW to commit to participate in what the town has said they would do, which is to solve these problems. The town's committed to do that, and they're not doing it. The DPW has got to be more cooperative in this venture, and it's, you know, it obviously, the two things are strongly related, John. That I agree with you on that. But from a political perspective, basically the town has to tell the DPW that this is something we have committed ourselves to do.
That's how I'm seeing it.
I totally agree with you. I think you also should understand there is a lot that, you know, the expression, you know, perfection is the enemy of the good. In this case, inertia is the enemy of the good. You have a lot of inertia in DPW.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they know what they do, and they can do it. What we're asking them to do is something they've not done in the past, and
Right.
kind of reluctant to go there.
They're reluctant probably because they don't know how to.
That may be true.
So the question is, who do we know who knows how they should do it? Is this new guy, the deputy director, knowledgeable enough to know what to do? Because he is an engineer.
Yeah, you know, this is what baffles me is, remember about a year ago, we had a meeting with
Okay, I was cut off, right?
with him and with also the police chief and the fire chief. And they all recognized that low-lying roads were an issue and they wanted to do something about it. So, you know, and
Yeah.
he said that he would be cooperative with us and work with us. So, I mean, that's baffling that they're doing nothing. I mean, there should, you know, we should figure out why. I mean, is there a reason?
Because DPW didn't come to the meeting.
Oh, I thought the new guy did, the engineer did.
Well, his boss didn't anyway. I don't know. Suzanne, were you going to say something?
Oh, yeah, my internet went all wonky. No, I mean,
I think he just cut out again.
that they work with. I mean, it would seem to me that a professional needs to be brought in to
And
look
we
at.
need do we need a grant for the professional?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we were starting from. Yes.
Okay, so right now we should try to write up this grant when we have some time, requesting the professional help, so that when we get the 1 week notification that we always do, that we have to submit a grant, we've at least got the technical aspects of it written out and described.
Yeah, and also, I just, the way I see it, ideally, the way this would happen is that all of these projects, and I don't, I haven't really thought about how to deal with it, whether it's all together or one by one, or what project is going to be what. We haven't figured that out. I think that, again, that takes a professional consultant to break it down into different projects. So because of that, what was my point? Oh, well, I just think that being prepared for these well in advance, so that you're grant ready by the time next year rolls around is the way to go. And it's probably the most likely way to get funding.
Mhm.
And
Say that again.
well, just that, like, I think that we should formulate the projects, and they are what they are, and formulate them, and then identify the proper grant sources. And even if one of those proper grant sources is a year from now, but to just do it well in advance instead of waiting until the announcement and then scrambling to get it done.
So that means we should start writing now.
Yeah, I think we probably have to start at the beginning to identify what's the first thing that we need. And we did work with Heather McElroy on that. I mean, that part of that process has been done. And so basically what Cape Cod Commission did with Heather is they broke this whole need for vulnerable roads down and said, here's what we can do with you at this time. And we can work with you and partner with a number of other towns to identify, as we explained earlier, one or two roads that are really in need. They're a priority. Identify two of those, and they'll be assessed by an engineering consultant. And then one of those, being a priority, will be funded to have the actual work done.
Mhm.
So so I think that's what you have to do the whole way. However, I just personally think it would be better to do it well in advance instead of rushing to meet deadlines and stuff like that.
So that means you have to write up as much of the project and its needs now,
Yeah,
starting now.
I would say yes. Yeah. And to me, that means getting help from DPW and
Okay.
engineering consultants and knowing exactly.
But there's a difference. Engineering consultants means we have to spend money
Right.
that's not in the budget, whereas DPW is tell them to help us.
Well,
So
yeah,
it can't be the same thing in a single sentence. It's got to be, we have to formulate something with DPW so that we're in a position to write a grant to get a consultant.
right. No, absolutely. We have to work with DPW to prioritize, if nothing else.
Right.
Prioritize on what needs to be done first.
Yeah, but Suzanne, it makes sense now to work with John and his committee as well as DPW.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and it might be helpful to reach back out to Heather and with this new information and run it by her. I mean, she may have other sources of state money, given that it would satisfy some of our 208 plan. That may make a whole bit of difference. There may be funding for that.
So let's figure out where we're going. I think one of the things we need to do is get on the select board agenda. We're going to be asking them for a number of things. But one of the things we want to talk about with the select board is to say, this is our priority. We want to get in a position to apply for grants by describing our need. And that needs to have input from our committee, from the wastewater committee, is it?
Yep.
John, is that?
Yep.
And from the DPW, and we need some direction from the select board to prioritize this for the DPW so we can write down what the problem is so that we can insert that into a grant application when the opportunity arises. Is that
Okay.
a summary of what we're asking for?
Sure, and I'm just wondering, are there any other departments or committees that could potentially be involved in this too?
Why don't we let the select board
Okay,
advise us on that, okay?
yeah,
Coming from them, it will help. We can
Yeah.
raise the issue. If there's anybody else who ought to be involved, fine.
You know,
Maybe they
let's
can
not make
create
it
an,
complicated from the beginning. You know, let's go
right,
with a path here which gets the DPW involved. And,
Right.
you know, if we achieve that, this thing will move forward.
right. Maybe we'll ask them to create an ad hoc working group for the specific process of preparing a grant application so that when it arises, we can ask for money under the 208 plan or money under the vulnerabilities plan, but as
Yeah.
a single overarching request. So we're doing it all at the same time.
I think that would be so helpful.
Okay, so that's one item we'll put on the agenda for our ask for the select board, okay?
Great.
Anything else on this discussion?
No,
Okay, we'll come back to it, but we will go try to do it on the agenda for the select board. Okay. The next item then, can you see my screen?
Mhm.
Is a motion of support for the specific goals of the greenhouse gas reductions. Did we do this last time or not? I forgot, Lily.
Thought we did.
Okay, then, and we voted for a net zero?
Correct.
Okay.
I do-
And this is probably, it's a town policy by now, thanks to the motion John introduced. So I guess there isn't too much more we need to do on this, right? We are agreed our goal is net zero by
It's not just net
2050.
zero, it's also a progression in the path.
And as well as 2030 and 2040 goals, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I was going to say that, yeah. And I would have said 50 and 75%, except that I attended something by John Ismay, and he thinks the state might be coming out with a 40 or 45% reduction in 2030. I hope not. Let's stick to our guns at 50% by 2030 for now, since we're going to do the same things we were going to do anyway, which is keep
Right.
working as hard as we can. Ryan Curley, going on to the next item, Ryan Curley had sent me a proposed policy, a proposed fuel efficient automobile policy, recommending that the town only look at hybrid vehicles. I said I would go look at an all electric vehicle. I talked to the police department, Steve Hurley. He pointed out that they buy their automobiles from off of a list, and it's a Plymouth County list. So I'm still working how to get those people to put all electric vehicles on that list. I have a couple of calls in, including with Mass CEC. So I'm working that one now.
What about the vehicles used by the DPW?
Are they any ordinary cars? Or are they trucks?
Well, pickup trucks, I don't know, you know, when you fit them in, but
Well, I don't know if large
I see a lot
trucks-
of them around, so.
Electric trucks? Do you know of any trucks, large trucks that are electric? John?
No, I'm going to address your point. So I'm just,
Okay. I think the easiest thing is just plain cars, but the only cars I know of are a fire department truck and a police cars. We don't
Right.
supply cars to other people. John, what, you going to say
Yeah,
something on this?
I talked to someone, I put out a lot of inquiries. I found someone may have been Lexington, but I'm not sure of the town anyway. And that they now purchase all green energy cars. I mean, not green, they purchase electric cars for their police department. And they do it, they said that the state's procurement list is more expensive than the Green Energy Consumer Alliance. And if you purchase cars through the Green Energy Consumer Alliance, you can get electric cars that are cheaper than the state procurement list.
Does
and-
that include police cars?
That includes police cars.
Okay.
So I think we should talk to the police department of looking to the Green Energy Consumer Alliance for purchasing all electric vehicles. Because the only advantage of the state procurement list is it's cheaper, but if you can get them cheaper from somewhere else, then we should do it. And I
Well,
think,
okay, I will take an action to call the Green Energy Consumer Alliance. The police did not put a vehicle on the last year's warrant, and they may have one on this coming warrant. So that's the place where we'll put the motion, if we
And
can find it.
when you talk to the police department, you might mention that, I don't know, 2 town meetings ago, I can't remember which 2 different town departments put forth proposals to the town. One of them came forward with an energy efficient automobile that got the okay, and the other one did not, and it got turned down. So I think if the police are interested in getting a new patrol car, if they can come to the town with a proposal for a all electric car, it's much more likely to get a positive vote from the town based on.
Right. What the police department is very cooperative. Okay, they just want a police car. If they
Right, but
think
I'm just saying tell them the strategy is they'd be better off asking for an energy efficient car, particularly in
Right.
all like.
But we need to do the work, and that's me. I will take it on to call the Green Energy Alliance and see if we can get a quote.
Right,
What it would cost and how long that quote is good for, because we won't be doing it until the spring.
exactly.
But if we can get an all-electric police car, those are the only cars I think we buy that are ordinary passenger cars. I don't think we're in the dump truck market yet. There are a few
No,
pickup
but
trucks.
we do. I mean, the health department and conservation, department has a car. It's an SUV, but they have one. I mean, I can't think of it. I think DPW may have a car, like a SUV that they use to drive around. I'm not sure, but we should check because there may be other cars.
Okay, the DPU probably has a list of all the cars. Is that right?
I would assume so.
Okay.
Does anybody know whether the DPW vehicles are included in the town energy and GHG database? I meant to look that up before this meeting, but I didn't.
I think they must be. They take gas. We keep track of gas.
Right, I would think so.
But I don't see, I have never seen any itemized list of the DPW vehicles, trucks, etc.
Okay. So that's something we need to work from DPW.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will look at this Green Energy Alliance and see what they have for police cars. I think they buy off these lists. One, because it's cheaper, but 2, because it's state approved. So they don't have to do an open bid process. It's not just cost.
Right.
Okay, because there are laws on procuring things. You can't just go out and buy something. You
Right.
need to do an RFP. right? Okay. So then the next item is the local comprehensive plan. Um, can we put this off? John, are you going to, let's talk about the climate action first, John, because this should be briefer. Is there a climate action network group in town?
Not officially, no.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
Basically, I've been working with them, but off and on. COVID has kind of shut me down from a lot of things.
so is there a group that would like to call itself the Climate Action Network in Wellfleet?
I don't know. I suspect we could get one set up if we, I mean, I can contact the people, basically I was working with 360.org, the 360.org, 350.org people, may have Wellfleet members besides me. I'm sure they do. We could put them together into a climate action network. I think it would be nice if we get some high school kids involved.
I thought
Yeah.
that
Go on,
someone
Robert.
on the committee was involved in, wasn't David involved in this climate?
David is
Action.
No,
also
that's a Cape Cod Climate Collaborative.
right.
Or-
David is involved with the collaborative.
Yeah, okay. So there isn't a formal group yet. Let's just let it be known that we are interested in working with them. When we get around to open Outer Cape Energize, we're going to need as many volunteers as we can.
Right.
Okay, so now we do have a lot of work to do on the local comprehensive plan. Carol, you got some inputs from people, but I think we're going to have a discussion of it line by line. Are you prepared to share your screen and go through that? So we can talk to it, Carol?
I can't put it on the screen. I'm using the wrong computer.
Do I have the latest
Send it.
version?
I sent it a couple hours ago, 3
Couple
hours
of
ago.
hours. Okay, let me just check what I have from you from the last couple of hours. Okay.
Unfortunately, I have to do something at 8 o'clock, so
Okay.
I'll
Well,
stick
here
with
it is. Okay, so let's go on to this. Looks right, Carol?
This is the right one.
Yep.
Okay.
Dick, do you want to talk about the covenant of the mayors and the status of that before Robert leaves?
Well, it's your preference, Robert. Would you rather talk about this? Is there any change?
Yeah, my problem right now is the town is committed to do things by a certain period of time, starting at, time zero when we first signed up. And those things, were initially, an inventory and then plans for improving things and then improving things. And, the one thing that I've been able to enter into that is basically what we've done with, with the dump. That's even though it's not really turned on yet, we have done that. Okay. But, all of
What
these.
about our Green Communities grants? We've had 2 of them. They're part of this plan.
Yeah, the green community things is that I have also included.
Okay. And we also get, on a townwide basis, we're doing a lot of conservation through the Cape Light Compact. And there are, maybe I should, it's townwide, but they keep booking energy savings for all the money that they have spent in town. Now, I get those reports and the administrator does, but those are also things we can claim credit for.
Well, why don't you send me some of the material on that and I'll see what I can do with it.
Okay. I'll go back to the compact and ask for a summary for the last 5 years for Wellfleet. okay? But they have spent lots of money in investing in improving energy efficiency for residents and businesses over the last 5 years. And somehow that ought to be in the plan, progress against the plan.
Yeah, well, it's possible.
We
Possible.
also voted last week, or talked about last week, the fact that the town passed the net zero resolution as part of our commitment.
That I put in there. That's in there.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Some of the, yeah.
You- Robert, do you need anything else to put in there besides this?
Yeah, I mean, the things that, I mean, there's the whole town-owned side, and then it's the resident side. And the resident
Yes.
side is, I mean, there are things we've done which have had some benefit in that area, but I don't have numbers that really, corroborate some achievement.
But
What
we have been getting grants from the Cape Light Compact for town-owned buildings over the last 5 years. We just haven't summarized it and put it into the plan.
Yeah, but also, Robert, you can get the number of residents who have put solar PV on their roof from the state. And, do you have that data? And then would that be helpful?
It would be good if I had an actual count of
If
the
there is an
number of
actual
residents
count from
involved.
Mass CEC, at least up until the time when they started the SMART program. Once they started SMART program, the reporting isn't the same. But Mass CEC has a spreadsheet, which I have seen. I have a very out-of-date version of it, which lists every installation in Wellfleet that's applied for Mass CEC SRECs, which is all of them. So you'll see hundreds of installations in Wellfleet.
Yeah, it's challenging to format this in the right way because, what they like to say is, okay, first you propose a plan, okay, then you execute the plan, then you evaluate what you got out of it. So, it's kind of those 3 steps. So there are ways of working some of this stuff into that, but it's some effort. But I need to have at least the right numbers in respect to things like how many houses that were residence houses they put, solar panels
Yes.
on.
That's available from a Mass CEC spreadsheet, at least until the start of the SMART program, and may be current.
Yeah.
So I will call Mass CEC to get a link to that. Okay.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, Dick, you should also be able to get data from the Cape Light Compact about how many houses have done energy audits and have made these upgrades. This, CLC should have that data too.
Yes, they send it to me every quarter and I promptly ignore it.
I mean, it'd be nice to have numbers like how many mini splits were installed. And
That
then
we don't have any numbers on because mini splits are not done with anybody giving them, essentially doing it. We have the conservation measures, which is insulation of roofs. I'm not sure whether or not anyone records mini splits. There is a rebate. I think it's from Mass CEC, so maybe they do know that.
Yeah, but also,
somebody must have recorded that. I mean, a lot of us got rebates, so.
yeah, but also too, CLC has the numbers for the energy audit and also the installation. I mean, that has to be helpful information too,
Yes,
right?
as I said, I know they have it. They send it to me quarterly.
Well, if you could
So
get,
we can get it from them summarized for 5 years for just Wellfleet.
That would be, if you feed me with that information, then I might be able to do something good with it. So,
Okay, so those are my 2 actions. Okay.
okay, thank you.
All right, now let's go talk about our plan. which is,
We had it. It was here a minute ago.
I know, I got to get to the right window. Is it this one? Yes. Okay.
No, that's the old one.
Oh, I thought, okay, let me close this. I thought this, you're
You
right, I
got
had
the
the
email.
one,
You got it from your email because I sent
right.
it.
Yes, here we are.
Yep, this is it.
This is it.
Okay, so goal. Was there any comment on this one? By the way, did this incorporate everybody's comments?
Yes, I only got comments from 2 other people and my own. So 3 of us.
Okay, so the green,
So the only thing in number 1 that is changed essentially is that I put in this thing in italics. We had discussed at the last meeting the idea of leaving in goals that we had already accomplished. And I considered that number 3 is something that we accomplished with John's resolution at the town meeting. So I put this resolution passed at town meeting. I don't know if we want to do that, or we want to leave that off.
why don't we leave it in the form of implement the recently enacted policy? Okay, do you understand what I'm, Carol? Take the verb out from enact to implement the recently enacted policy that requires as our goal.
So leave off the annotation, but change the way it's stated.
Yes,
Got it.
but include everything resolution passed. Implement the resolution passed at town meeting in the fall of 2020 to
Okay.
for a policy. Okay, so you get all the words in, but it looks like we're implementing something.
Yep.
That's just
Got it.
wordsmithing, but all right.
And then in goal 2, rather than say reduce energy consumption, non-renewable energy consumption, and encourage
Okay.
conservation, and in alignment with Commonwealth goals, achieve these levels.
Okay,
And I guess we don't know if those are final yet, but
but we can use them if the state is more ambitious. If they're more ambitious, we can always say at least. Of at least, we can have more ambitious goals than the state. So why don't we put in an word at least in case the state is more ambitious?
achieve at least a
A reduction of at least of greenhouse gas
reduction
of at least, yeah, somewhere at least 50%.
Okay. Okay, and then I had asked you, Dick, by email, but did not get a response. I don't know why number 5 was in red under both the Wellfleet Town and Wellfleet Community.
Because I think I added it at some point many months ago from what was originally there. In any event, in revising it, it's in black.
Okay, and then the suggestion was to identify what peak hours are by season. I assume that the thinking was that they would be different from one season to the next. I don't know if that's true.
Well, the thing about it was that when Maggie Downey gave a presentation at our last energy fair, she said that the peak hours in the summertime are basically the afternoon, late afternoon to early evening. And, because people are coming off the beach and using air conditioning. So it surprised me that those were the peak hours.
Well, that's the peak hours of the day are exactly what you said in the summertime. And in the wintertime, it's when the maximum amount of heating occurs, which is somewhat later in the day. That is, in the summer, it's from an hour before sunset when the solar stops working until people begin to go, it begins to cool off at night.
I think she
But
said,
in the winter, the peak hours are when you need maximum heating, which is in the late evening.
I looked it up on Eversource and they don't say anything about a seasonal difference. The
What-
peak hours are like 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and not weekend.
No, it's not.
Can I,
So what they have on
Well,
their
maybe.
website is not accurate.
7 a.m. is not a peak hour.
can I,
Maybe it was 8 a.m., but
Could have
it
been
was
7
Monday to
p.m.
Friday, early in the morning till about 8 p.m. was what they define as peak hours. And
Yes,
nothing
but that
seasonal.
says, let's take your worst 12 hours. Now let's say, what are your worst 3 hours? And you'll get a different answer. So
Right.
how you
but if
ask
the
the question.
rate, aren't we trying to get the rate? I mean, if the rate doesn't change during that time, what's the difference?
it doesn't change at all. That's just
Right.
also, there's no rate, Carol.
Don?
There's
Can
no
I just say that-
financial. Yeah, go
I
on.
think this is an argument we don't have to have. Peak hours is by definition a flexible time period. We don't have to put the time in it. We can just say reduce peak hour energy consumption for town buildings. And if the peak energy period shifts from one season to another, it's still, we know it's what we're talking about is when energy consumption is at the greatest, we want to reduce that. Peak hour just refers to the greatest energy consumption. And it's a flexible, it doesn't specify whether it's the actual hours, and we don't have to either. We're after when energy consumption is at its greatest, we want to reduce it. So say reduce peak hour energy consumption for town buildings answers the question.
Right.
Well, John,
Okay.
I agree with you about that, overall. And, and Carol, I hear you because that's what I read before and that's what I believe. But I thought it would be important to say this because the truth is the peak hours are different by season than what most people think they are. And that's what I was trying to draw attention to. So
I also
don't
think
gather-
at the time we were considering that ice bear system. Remember, that was going
Yeah.
to freeze ice, and that's what we were thinking of when we did it.
I mean, this is even before that, Dick, but yeah, that came into play then too. But yeah, I mean, it's a minor point. It doesn't, would satisfy me to take that out. But I just thought it would be really a good thing and a positive thing to draw attention to that because I don't think a lot of people know that.
I think you're totally right that people aren't aware that it changes. Obviously in the winter, your peak energy consumption is more in the evening, late evening, while in the summer, it's the heat of the day, late afternoon. But I think that we don't need it. But I think, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you're right. I just don't think we need that to say that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me, whatever the consensus is, but I just thought it was, really interesting. I changed my, my behavior and my patterns as a
Okay.
result of it.
So let me say that what we were aiming at is that one of our goals is to reduce peak hour consumption targeted, not just overall consumption. Because when you reduce peak hour consumption, you reduce the need for capital investment in the grid. And
Right.
so that's what the point of was, that we were targeting peak hour consumption wherever it is to reduce the need for capital investment in the grid, because the grid is built to handle the worst case, the worst hour of the year. Otherwise, you'd have a brownout.
Right.
And so by identifying it and targeting it, we help the grid. That was the point of it.
Well, whatever way you want to, use this, so, make revisions if you want to, or leave it in if you want to.
Well, I
Okay.
think it's still a valid point.
Should we move on?
Yeah,
Let's move on.
yeah, let's move on.
Rick needs to move the screen.
Oh, okay.
So goal number 3, the preamble is parallel to the goal number 2's. And I'll make the same kind of change to that. We still need to move it down.
Dick, are you there?
I think we lost Dick. We've lost our leader.
Well, why don't I say, why don't we do any old business, because I don't think he'll, if we want to jump to that. Oh, is he moving it down? Okay, good. All right. Okay, we can go on to the next then. Well, okay, so
So I added in number 2. Yes, Lily?
no, I just wanted to, go ahead, Kara.
In number 2, I
Carbon.
added greenhouse gas reduction as it was carbon and air source heat pump along with solar panel.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Uh,
That's good.
And then 5, 6, and 7 were new suggestions. So
There is
are
one
there
thing in the air source heat pumps. I think we should also talk about batteries somehow. Which, okay, maybe that's the next one, item 3. Ways to reduce peak hour consumption. That's batteries.
Yeah, good point.
But we have it as if it's item 3.
So such as batteries,
Well, no.
storage
Batteries
or
are a way of promoting ways homes and businesses can reduce peak hour consumption.
okay,
That's
so after consumption, add such as storage batteries. Do you want to mention it?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be comma, including the use of battery storage.
Yes.
That sounds better. Good. So, number 5 was my suggestion because we've talked about this electric car fair event, and electric cars are mentioned under the town of Wellfleet, but not under the community.
Good idea.
That's great.
The charging station, charging stations are not really a problem. That is, everybody thinks, oh, there are no charging stations. But as the need grows, commercial people are stepping up and putting in charging stations. What we learned is most people, residents, charge at home. And therefore, they don't need level 2 or level 3 charging stations. They just charge at their house. The only time you would need a charging station possibly is if you're a destination such as a beach, and you want non-residents to come and charge at the beach, right? But somehow that's not a big goal for us because
So are you suggesting taking out charging stations?
I don't think that, Dick, I think we should leave it in. I think that was a good
Okay.
suggestion by Carol, and I think we should just leave it in.
Yeah, okay.
I also
I'm
think
not-
As a
Yeah.
consumer, I know that I need to have electric work done in order to
Right.
get an electric car. And I
Right,
would
you
like help
will.
on that because I don't know what I need.
Yes,
I agree with Carol. I think we should leave it in. It also sends a message. So I think Carol's right.
all right. let me see, I lost the thing again. Give me a minute. Because I closed the browser
Okay.
on my window. Okay,
Let me
you
read
read the
you
next item from
program
yours.
by the Commonwealth.
What?
Read the next item, Carol, while I try to restore what I had.
Okay, this is number 6 under goal 3.
Mhm.
Provide information regarding incentive programs by the Commonwealth and other entities for reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
So that would be something like our Outer Cape Energize or Solarized Well Fleet?
Yeah, and also any incentive programs, like the incentive programs for EVs, just to make sure that people know about it. And any rebates that CLC is giving or
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Lily, that we should take some responsibility for publicizing that.
Yes, this is our plan. What we intend to do specifically, I hope, is actively participate in the Outer Cape Energize program, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows what it's going to be, Dick, whether it's going to be the Cape and Islands
I'm
Energize.
sorry, I meant to, you're right, I meant to say Cape and Islands Energize.
It might be Outer Cape Energize, we don't know. It's,
Right,
not going to happen
yes,
until 2022, I guess, at this point. So
right.
that's,
Yeah, I'm not saying, this is a good way of saying it, but that's specifically what we intend to do.
yeah. So that was the last one was provide buying opportunities at reduced prices for greenhouse gas reducing technologies.
Again, part of these Energize programs.
Yeah, just, so that covers everything, whether it's Outer Cape Energize or it's Cape and Islands Energize or or whatever is out there that would give people the incentive to buy, because the more that was purchased, the lower the price would be. That was
Okay,
what that one was getting at.
good. Let's go on to the next one then. Does anyone else want to have anything else on this?
Okay, so under goal number 4, I think there weren't any changes until the bottom, where there are 3 new ideas. Keep
Climate
going.
change preparedness, okay. What this climate change preparedness is the adaptation, not the mitigation. 6 is addressing mitigation.
So where would it belong if it's accepted?
It should be under 1 and 2, right? Mitigation. What? 1 is, oh, okay, 2, I would guess. Measure baseline data is where it should be, and then follow up. It should be right after 6. In fact, it should be
After
the same
6.
as 6. Whereas this is a
Well,
continuation of
that's only
item.
for the town. I mean, one thing I was thinking about was
Right, you're right.
motor
It's-
vehicles. We have that data and they just won't give it to us.
Yes, you're right. There's a corresponding to 6 is should be a corresponding item under the town wide.
So essentially put that in 2 places,
I think
Well,
not under
I
goal
think this
4.
addresses the community wide. So no, it belongs somewhere in 3.
Okay.
If we didn't do it there already.
Okay, so
It belongs in 3. That's where it belongs.
are
You're
we
right.
agreed to keep that in?
Oh, there it is. It's number 1. except it should be right after one. This says measure baseline ongoing measurements of community energy. And now,
Okay. Can I make that part of number one?
yes, it's part of number
Just
one.
add
You
it
can
on.
rewrite one to say this
Okay,
if you want,
good.
but that was number one.
Okay. Then how about number 7
7 is definitely in this category, belongs here under climate preparedness.
and number 8?
We need number 8. It seems a bit sort of too much in the weeds.
Well, okay,
Okay, so those will become 6 and 7.
right, but goal 4, encourage townwide climate change preparedness. It shouldn't be mitigation. The buzzword is adaptation. Again, we're making the distinction between mitigation and adaptation, and this is just buzzwords. So the adaptation is where you respond to the effects of climate change that has already happened. So both there and in 1, instead of saying mitigation, it should say adaptation in this section.
So
I think I
under
was not
goal
buzzword
4
compliant when we wrote it originally.
I'm sorry, the goal 4 statement, you're saying change mitigation to
Ev-
adaptation?
Yes, everywhere in goal 4 where it says mitigation, it should be adaptation.
Okay,
Even number 1. I think at the time we weren't attuned to all the buzzwords.
okay.
You're right. You're right. That was a good catch.
Okay, so that's the end of the suggestions for changes.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. I wish I'd had a few more responses.
Well, some of it needs to be talked through, but you have all the notes on this right now. What do we do with this now that we have arrived at it?
Well, we had talked about taking it to the select board, but
Yeah.
today was the deadline for submitting things for the next meeting. So we'd be
So
in
there's
January,
always another meeting.
we'd be in January if we
Good.
want to do that.
Well, we're accumulating things to talk to the select board about. I don't think they're going to want to discuss this. I think we should just give it to them as well as forwarding it to the local committee as part of our submission when we ask to talk about things.
Yeah.
And we can briefly say we have done a revised local comprehensive plan. Okay,
Oh, and I forgot, oops, the recycling committee submitted a write-up. And I don't know how people feel about that, including that with ours.
Okay,
It looked to me
so-
as
the original section 10 was both us and the recycling committee. So they forwarded it to us because we were on the same section. So we should just pass it along with ours, say it's from the recycling committee. So there's a single submission and this doesn't get lost.
I'm not sure that I think this is a 5-year plan, am I correct? And I
Yes.
think theirs is really a 1-year plan.
It's up to the local comprehensive plan committee to do it.
Pardon?
That's the responsibility of the local comprehensive plan to tell them that.
Okay. So I
Richard?
will forward these,
Mhm.
I'll run it by you, Dick, when I've made the adjustments, and then I'll forward it and the recycling committees to Suzanne Thomas, who's in charge of the local comprehensive plan.
Right, and when we go before the select board, we will put this in the backup date, saying, and by the way, here's our plan, okay? We're not going to be,
Just present.
before the select board, I did get a note from Courtney, saying that when you go before the select board, you should be going there because you are asking them to do something, and that means you should prepare a motion. So when we go before them, we will be preparing motions for things we want them to do, but this doesn't require a motion. This is just background information. Okay, we're reporting on what we did, and this is what we've been doing. We hope the plan will be coming out because having a local comprehensive plan is part of the things we need to do for all of the other commitments we make, like the Global Covenant of Mayors. Okay, so we're doing our job. Okay,
Have we
so
lost our quorum, or do we still have, what is our quorum?
Yeah, we have 5 people.
we still have a quorum. It's 5.
Okay.
4 is a quorum.
We're running out because I have to leave at 8:30, so.
4 is still a quorum though.
Okay.
Because there are only 7 official members.
Is there anything else you want to address, John?
No, I covered everything that I had things to say.
Okay, I think we're getting towards the end. The regional high school, they did, as I reported last time, put together a presentation that addressed air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, and they completely shut down my idea of ground source heat pumps. And this morning, while thinking about it, I said, guys, you pulled the wool over my eyes. You've been bullshitting me. Or you hired a consultant, and the consultant didn't know their ass from first base, as they say, technical term. They started out with a presentation that said that the thermal conductivity of sand is nowhere near as good as clay, and it would take a 5-acre region to cool the high school. I said, I know that's not right. So I did my homework. That's true for dry sand. We have saturated sand because it's saturated with seawater, which is 10 times the thermal conductivity, which means the 5-acre lot goes down to half an acre of land, which is perfectly reasonable for building that size. And furthermore, they said that we only had about half an acre that are outside the critical concern of the Eastham water supply, but it's only half an acre. So guys, you got it wrong. Nonetheless, Eastham doesn't like anything in the water table because they're worried. So as long as they have an air source heat pump solution, I'm just as happy with it. But I should know never to believe experts. Unfortunately,
Dick, you become an expert.
I am. That's my job, is to be an expert in everything. That's what I did for a living. So fortunately, the other thing was Eastham doesn't like it politically. So air source heat pumps are perfectly okay if they get the job done. All right. So I wrote them saying, I'm willing to go along with an all electric solution, even if it's air source heat pumps, even though I think your experts made a grave error. I think I put and as a result, their results are all erroneous. Just to keep the heat on them. So I sent that off today. We'll see what happens. But I'd like to, when we go to the select board, ask them for a resolution saying we request that they can use, that the town of Wellfleet requests they pick an all-electric solution, which is what this committee voted on last time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I will formulate a motion, and in January, we'll put that before the select board. Okay? I don't have the exact wording yet, but that's the gist of it, and I will get it by the powers that be as the proper motion.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye,
Okay.
Ellen.
Thank you.
For those who went to the meeting of the joint energy committees, any feedback?
I love that some town is having a committee on wave energy.
Yeah.
We've all
Dennis.
got coastlines, and it'd be nice if we
Yeah,
could.
was that on the Vineyard?
Pardon?
Was that on
I
the
think
I
that was
think it was.
Martha's Vineyard, right?
I thought it was on the mainland, but I'm
No,
not.
Dennis.
I'm
maybe.
not sure.
Dennis. I took notes. Dennis.
Dennis. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my reaction.
Okay. Can we let them experiment and find out the result? Because all of our waves are in the national seashore. I don't know what we could do about it. However, it's interesting. We should find out what happens. Anything else? How did you like, there was a questionnaire they filled out. Did you like hearing from just energy committees or all the other people?
You know,
I liked hearing from others.
Yeah, it made for a long meeting, but I think it's valuable to know what other organizations are up to.
Yeah.
My feeling was that they should have gone first at the next meeting because we lost half of them because the meeting ran so long. And maybe
And
by
that's
now, hearing from the other energy committees should be much curtailed to one sentence on what you're doing that's new.
you know, something, we all fill out the questionnaire beforehand. So all the energy committees fill that out. Why can't they just send us a spreadsheet ahead of time with all of that? So the energy committee just ask for what they need help on. And then we hear the reports from the other committees. That would make more sense.
Yeah.
At least for the next meeting, maybe alternating since there are two a year. One focuses on the committees and one on the other outside groups. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. So there is a questionnaire coming around for all the attendees about how you feel about the other groups. And I've answered it. You should answer it too. Anything else about that anyone felt was interesting?
Dick, when you did the
I lost your sound, Susan. Suzanne.
Suzanne, you
Susanna.
hello?
Suzanne, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, my computer is really pretty awful. Even though I'm in Ethernet. But I was going to ask, has this committee done an electric vehicle show in the past?
no,
No.
there
Okay.
was one in Hyannis, and we
That was
wanted
it.
to replicate it on the Outer Cape.
Oh, okay. Well, it sounded like it was interesting to hear that CVEC and that other organization have done it and they were willing to help put that together for any town that might be interested.
Right. They were the ones who did it at the Hyannis Airport. So it's nice that they offered to help us.
Yeah.
By the time we get around to it in 2021, there will be a whole lot more electric vehicles. There are probably 10 right now, including a new Volkswagen and a new Audi, which are in the $50,000 and under range, and maybe a new Nissan is coming out in that time frame. So there are quite a few coming out besides Tesla. So when we get around, yeah, but Lily's still working on that, or still have it on your to-do list?
Yeah, I've got it on my to-do list, but I mean, until we can do it, I think it's, but also, I mentioned the EV car show in the energy committee, subcommittee that the Cape Cod Commission is having in Steve Tupper offered to help us too.
Okay,
Commission.
so why don't you pick a date? Maybe it's next
I think
spring, maybe it's next June, maybe it's next September, but pick a target date post-COVID
Yeah, I
so
think,
that we can start framing, making it real.
yeah, I think we should wait until we see what the rollout of the vaccine is first. I mean, if it rolls out the way we imagine it will, then maybe in the fall, late fall would be a good time. But
Well, why don't you assume it will roll out the way we think it is? Because we can always change our mind.
let's wait a month and see, where things are at. I mean, the assembly should get an update on Wednesday as to the rollout in Barnstable County. So let's wait until things get a little bit more concrete. It won't be that much longer before we do something like that. But
Yeah, but if you pick a date and get people's expectations set, even if you have to adjust it by a month or two, one way or the other, at least you start having something concrete people can focus on as opposed to it just being out.
okay,
And by a date, I mean, pick a month.
sure.
The date doesn't have to be more precise than the month.
Okay.
And I think more than one person should be working on this. I'd be happy to work with you, Lily.
Okay, that's great, Carol. Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Um, just to let people know we're thinking of it. And I think we can get the cooperation of all the other energy committees, including Eastham, which I understand is forming an energy committee.
Ah,
Yeah. Same thing.
So that would help. We can reach out to them. It would be something that would be easy for them to participate in. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be in Wellfleet, although maybe the drive-in would be a good location.
Yeah,
Right? There's plenty of room.
I can talk about those details. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The Outer Cape or Cape and Island Energize, I think we should support Cape and Island Energize, right? Does everyone agree with that? That if it gets off, fine. If not, we'll do it on ourselves, but let's give them our support and try and encourage them so it becomes a thing, right? Fundamentally, it's going to be that they will announce something and we'll do exactly what we have been doing out here. It'll take local people and the program will be essentially the same kind of program we have been doing, updated by 3 years later technology, which means we'll be talking about batteries and electric cars more.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a really great concept if they can pull this thing up and buying in bulk and the more that is purchased of any one of these items, the lower the prices for the consumer. I mean, that would be, a real win-win.
Yeah, I wouldn't count too much on that. I would look at this as actually saying that for the communities that know how to do it, they're dragging along all the communities who don't know how to do it.
Yeah, but
Because so we might as well just do our thing. And if it's under their aegis, that's terrific because they're going to say, the first thing they do is turn around and say, you need local volunteers in every town. Well, here we are. All right. So whether it's Outer Cape or all of the Cape and Islands isn't going to make much difference, except when we finally get around to doing it, what the advertising will be.
sure, and also what the numbers will be and what the reduced price will be and for the consumer. So, those are the things Yeah.
Okay.
that concern.
Um,
Any new news on the PV at the dump?
no, I haven't heard a thing. Nothing new.
Okay,
Um, okay. So we don't have anything. GB isn't here, so we haven't heard much about the meters. So then any other topics you want to talk about next time? Anything new? Nope. Um, Okay. Any old business anyone wants to bring up? No. Okay, then I guess we're about done. Thank you for hanging in there.
We want to
Lily?
pick the new business is the date for next time. For the
Oh.
next,
Good point. Okay, let me bring up my calendar. Everyone wants to check
Yeah.
their calendar.
week, the third Monday is Martin Luther King Day. You know, if we were meeting in person, we could not do it. I presume we cannot do it via Zoom either.
Oh, it's
do
the
you
third
think?
Monday's Martin Luther King Day, so that's frowned on. Okay, so the 11th is the second Monday. Is the
What do you-
11th okay with everybody? January 11th?
Hey,
Yep.
Okay, so let's pick January 11th.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Let's do it by roll call. God forbid we should not be compliant. Lily, are
Yes.
you in favor? Dick, I'm in favor. Carol, are you in favor of adjourning? Carol? Okay, Suzanne?
yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Holidays. Bye-bye.
Suzanne, are you there?
Yeah. Hello?
Yes, we're adjourned. Bye.
Okay, bye.